Okay, a good few of my latest videos have been about the abnormal, the not normal, the unnormal, if you will. We've spoken about mysterious people, we've spoken about mysterious creatures, we've spoken about mysterious cryptids, and on this present moment, whenever you might be watching this, whether it be on release or 4 years down the line, we're going to cover paranormal entities, beings that defy the rules of nature. Now, it's important to state that most of, if not all of these, are man-made. They are a part of human culture and shouldn't really be treated as more than just a fable, a myth. Having said that, immediately dismissing all of them would be boring, so I'm going to make a case for each of them. So without further ado, this is the Paranormal Entities Iceberg Explained. We're starting off basic here and we're going to talk about Paranormal Iceberg. That's legitimately the first entry on the iceberg. That's what we're doing now. The Paranormal Iceberg is a FoxAkimbo video, the one that you are watching right now. Weird first entry, but I guess that's the point, so on to the next one. Ghosts. We've spoken about them before, but I guess it wouldn't hurt to touch on them again. Ghosts are the idea that a soul, a spirit, or somebody has unfinished business on Earth after they pass. The world is used as a form of purgatory, and this person will be stuck, doomed to wander the planet for the rest of eternity, unless they can figure out how to move on to the afterlife. This is usually done in the form of atonement, whether it be them atoning for their sins in life, or perhaps their descendants righting a wrong that they made at some point in their existence. Atonement comes in many forms and flavors. Some powers that ghosts have is the ability to open doors, make the wind move, and haunt places. We're going to be getting into a lot of ghosts the further we go down, but many people have said that they have seen ghosts, and I'd like to know right now, have you? I'd be interested to find out, so please let me know down in the comments. From ghosts to religion, I'm covering the lot, because when it comes to faith, there seems to be a lot of the paranormal involved. Things that we just can't comprehend, or mysterious goings on. For that reason, angels are up next on this iceberg chart, and they are something that I actually haven't spoken about yet. These beings are synonymous with Abrahamic religions, and whilst across cultures and religions, they are said to have different appearances, the most common idea is that they have majestic wings, not dissimilar to a bird. They also have halos on their heads, and they have a divine light surrounding them. We commonly say that angels are either the protectors of God or that they serve as guides for wayward humans. And those that stray from their own paths are known as fallen angels, but that's a story for another day. They tend to be their own beings. Throughout the years, however, people claim to have seen angels, people who have descended from the skies with a divine message for them. And while these accounts are hard to verify, those who say that it's happened to them are extremely adamant on it actually having happened. I personally am always interested to hear these people out, and the frequency in which it happens does make you wonder, could any of them be telling the truth? It's tough to say, but it's an interesting paranormal phenomena nonetheless. We will flip the tables now and talk about what is perhaps the opposite of the angel, that being the demon. Now, while angels are often seen as servants of God, bringers of light and joy, beings that deliver important messages for good, demons tend to be seen as the servants of the devil, bringers of destruction and mayhem, and they generally don't deliver messages as much as they manipulate and deceive humans into acting upon their bidding. Many people will blame their misdeeds on the supernatural, and of all scapegoats, demons are definitely up there with the most frequent. Whether or not demons do speak to humans is another question, but they are often blamed for humans' misdeeds. Yet again, they are most common in Abrahamic religions, meaning Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, for anyone unaware, as well as a few others, but those three are the most popular Abrahamic religions. Now, demons don't just have to be an external force working for the devil, because people have internal demons, vices, and things that they've done that they can't forgive themselves for. That's a very real demon, but the paranormal kind, they're much more hard to see, with people explaining them oftentimes by saying that the demon is whispering into their ears, implanting memories that, while physically they're not there, mentally they are. It's another interesting one, and it completely makes sense for there to be the opposite of angels, just like bad is the opposite of good. It's symbiotic. If there is a good, there is a bad. If there's a god, there is a Satan. If there are angels, there are demons. It's a fascinating part of human culture, the human experience, and religion in general. The Flying Dutchman is perhaps the most famous ghost ship of all time, which is said to have never been able to make port, cursed to sail the seven seas for the rest of eternity. According to legend, if at any point the Flying Dutchman comes into contact with another ship, they will try to send messages to the people that the crew knew. People who at this point would be dead for about 300 years. Still, some say that on calm nights on ocean waves, they can hear the moans of the crew of this ghostly entity howling for a life that once was. Many people claim to have seen the ship, but to this day, not a soul has been able to capture them on tape, or at least live to show the videographic evidence. Still, legend states that the Flying Dutchman will be sailing the seas for the rest of eternity, so we've got some time to get the footage of this ghost ship. The Succubus is an interesting entity that we've ascribed to be a female demon that gets its powers from sexual activity with men. It tricks unsuspecting men into believing that it's a beautiful woman, being seen as a seductress or an enchantress before engaging in sexual activity with said men, and this will result in the male having their health deteriorate, leading to poor or failing physical and mental health. I can actually speak from experience here too. The Succubus has once affected my life. You, Samantha. Anyways, ladies, don't feel too bad because there is a male equivalent to the Incubus. And to be fair, whilst it's not spoken about as much in fiction, there's definitely more of them out there in the real world. An incubus is the same deal. It uses sex and sexual activity to gain its power. Stories of the succubi and incubi have been told for hundreds of years, and while deep down these stories are a way to enforce social control, it's fascinating to hear them and wonder why society came up with them in the first place. The spirit of the Ouija board. For 130 years now, humans have been using the Ouija board to speak with those who have passed on. The idea is that at the dead of night, on a day that means a lot to the person you want to contact, a group of people must gather and ask questions to the spirit realm with their hands on the Ouija board. From there, the spirit will guide the Ouija board to spell out an answer, and while some blame those with their hands on the board, others say that there is no logical explanation of what's going on, other than the idea that some spirit is talking to them. Whether it's the one you actually are intending to speak to or not, that's another question, but that's one of the more popular ways of contacting the deceased. Many Christian denominations have come out warning people against the use of Ouija boards, but nonetheless, people still use them. Pseudoscience or simply the source of a spirit's speech? You decide. So, we've spoken about normal demons, and perhaps the demons that come out when you're trying to use a Ouija board, but let's talk about another type of demon now. One that is ill-defined, or at least it's harder to define than the previous ones. That paranormal entity being the sleep paralysis demon. If you've never had sleep paralysis, you might find it difficult to comprehend, but many who have had the issue have claimed that when they suffer from sleep paralysis, they can see a demon-like figure. Some people are visited by the same one over and over again, whilst others claim that they are visited by various beings. Apparently, the worst thing about these demons is that while you know you're there, since you're suffering from sleep paralysis, there isn't anything you can do about it. You just have to sit there and accept it. And while some argue that what you're seeing is just pareidolia, or something that can be explained by the brain tricking you in a stressful situation, others are insistent that something, anything, some sort of unexplained phenomena is there. What is the truth? Well, you probably have to be in the situation to find out for yourself. And if you're part of the unlucky 7.6% that will commonly get sleep paralysis at some point in their lives, you might be able to tell me down in the comments what you think a sleep paralysis demon is. I don't know, I don't really have it, but I'd be interested to find out what your experience is, so let me know down below. The Djinn is an interesting creature. Often anglicised as a genie, the idea is that there could be something out there, a paranormal being at that, whose claim to fame is that they are a supernatural creature with supernatural powers. Tales of the Djinn began in pre-Islamic Arabian and Islamic theology, and while this being is yet again synonymous with religion, unlike demons or angels but more like human, the Djinn is neither good nor evil exclusively. It could be either. Speaking of humans, angels and demons, some say that the Djinn makes up the fourth wise creation from God, with the aforementioned humans, demons, and angels making up the other 3. The Djinn, like humans, tend to be more neutral, as at times they're responsible for misfortune and disease, whereas sometimes stories of the Djinn is more positive, with them being more supportive and benevolent. It's said that the creature strives for free will, and legend has it that they're made from flame and fire. The entire story of the Djinn is just so captivating for me. I didn't know that they had such a rich history to them, and I didn't know that they were ever mentioned in any holy books or anything. They have so much more of a enticing backstory than I had ever anticipated. Do they exist? That's another question. I don't know many people claiming they do, but nonetheless, their story is engrossing. So now that we're working our way down the iceberg, some of these entries are going to be quite obscure, so as we proceed, let's suspend our disbelief and carry on going. With that out of the way, let's talk about the lady in red for a second. If you haven't heard of her, she's a ghost, and according to legend, the reason for this is more specifically attributed to her being killed at the hands of a jilted lover, or perhaps she was raped and committed suicide because of it. Nobody knows the reason why she's still around. Nobody knows for certain her true origin story, but through it all, she is always seen as a victim of objectification. In every case, the lady in red is spotted wearing a scarlet or blood red dress. Now, due to the unfortunate circumstances surrounding her demise, she's said to be typically friendly in disposition, not being a ghost that is prone to haunting people. Her story is told around North America, Europe, and Asia, with different cultures teaching different stories, but all of them have the woman in red as a victim. How she actually passed, we don't know, but regardless, her story is that of tragedy. The Vanishing Hitchhiker is a tale of great woe and intrigue. It's so riveting to many that there have been books written about this paranormal entity, but still, to this day, no one can put a pin in just who this mysterious figure is. While there are many renditions of this fable, the general gist is that people are driving at the dead of night and are stopped by a mysterious being on the side of the road. The people proceed to interact with this hitchhiker before it suddenly vanishes. The weird thing is that this story is widespread. You have to assume that this has happened multiple times and to numerous people. In fact, by 1943, there were over 70 stories of this mystery hitchhiker. Was the tale that of grand paranormal activity? Were those involved being taught a lesson, or was there a reason they were chosen? What was going on here? To this day, we still don't know. However, some say that on cold winter nights, if you're driving down the right road, with not another soul around, the Vanishing Hitchhiker might just give you a visit, before abandoning you into the abyss from whence it came. Next up on the list I have for you on this fine day is... well, you've heard of the Headless Horseman, right? This isn't him, but maybe it's his cousin of the clergy or something? This is the story of the Headless Nun. Now, the thing is about the Headless Nun is that tales of her are much fewer and further between. In fact, there is only one predominant story, and it dates all the way back to the 1700s in Canada, in Fort French Cove to be precise. Legend has it that a Sister Marie was beheaded. Now, the reasoning behind her ill-timed death are debated. In one telling of the story, she was murdered by a mad trapper. In another version, she was killed by 2 sailors after not revealing the location of some hidden treasure that remains lost to this day. Even still, one thing remains consistent, and that is that Sister Marie's head was separated from her shoulders, and it was never seen again. Many state that Sister Marie still wanders the earth, a helpless woman in search for her lost head, and that one day, if she were to find the organ that she holds oh so dear, she would be at peace, and can pass on to whatever awaits her next. However, to this very day, she still hasn't found the head that she so desperately is in pursuit of, and so is still walking around the earth. So that's the tale of Sister Marie. Just give it a little mull over tonight as you drift off, that's all I ask. From a ghost without a head to a crew of ghosts, our next entry takes us back to the high seas. However, despite being on the seas now instead of land, the events of the ship Octavius also happened in the 1700s too. However, unlike the Headless Nun, the Octavius didn't have just one casualty, no. 28 people died aboard the Octavius back in 1762. It wouldn't be until 1775, however, until their bodies were discovered upon by a whaler who, with a 5-man boarding party, found the almost perfectly preserved bodies of 28 unfortunate individuals cloaked in ice, frozen in time. The most notable of which was obviously the captain, who had gone down with his ship, dying at the very desk from which he commanded his vessel. He had kept a log of the ship's experience, and this log would be the only thing that the whalers would take with them, too afraid to take anything else. This journal would be the only evidence of a life once lived by the corpse crew. However, because this log had been frozen for over a decade, it slipped from its bindings, leaving only the first few and last few pages left. From this log, we know that the ship set sail for the east from England in 1761 and reached its destination the following year. However, the return would be when things became deadly, because the captain of the ship took the treacherous northwestern passage, with the unfortunate result of trapping the vessel in a sea of ice just north of Alaska. The ship was then found near Greenland years later after floating for many moons, and this would be its final destination. The tale of the Octavius is one of tragedy in the end, but ghost ship stories are always fun, and this one is no different. I mean, who on board the Octavius could have thought that 200 years later, some dumb YouTuber would be talking about them to the world, telling their story? It really is incredible. The Jenglot is... yeah, we're starting to get into the weird and wacky. So for the majority who don't know what the Jenglot is, back in the 90s, these strange dolls started appearing around Indonesia for no apparent reason. Creepy as they are, more people were actually interested in their backstory, of which we've come up with a few ideas, but because they're such an enigma, we just don't have a definitive answer. Some people say that they're vampires, others believe that they used to be human beings and have been subjected to a curse, causing them to become a 20cm straw doll. In fact, I say doll, but Indonesians believe these things to be alive, and many will go out of their way to feed them. According to legend, they only consume blood and will absorb it their own unique way. The Jenglot is commonly found by psychics after supernatural ceremonies. Perhaps their aura attracts those who can see the paranormal. Overall, we know very little about these. Where have they come from? Are they humans? How do you avoid becoming one? And are they conscious? All questions that are still unanswered to this very day. From Indonesia, we travel northeastwards towards Japan next to speak about the Yumi Bozu, a paranormal entity that goes by many names and titles such as Yumi Hoshi and Yumi Yudo, both of which translate to Sea Priest, provided I pronounce them right. So you might be asking, what is this Yumi Bozu and what are its claims? Well, in Japanese folklore, legend has it that the Yumi Bozu is a sea spirit and appears to sailors on calm waves, turning them instantaneously tumultuous. These rough seas will go on to break the ship, leaving sailors to drown under the waves of Japanese oceans. Some say that the only way to escape the Yumi Bozu is to throw it a bottomless barrel and make your escape whilst it's confused. Appearing at night, very few have seen the Yumi Bozu. Even less have lived to tell the tale, but many in Japan are convinced that to this day, the Yumi Bozu lurks under the depths of the ocean blue, waiting for another group of plucky but unlucky sailors to utterly and entirely destroy. We have to begin winding down now because we're getting to the depths of this iceberg, and a lot of these I just have no idea for. Many of these are paranormal creatures based off foreign mythology, niche mythology at that, which is very tough to research. But having said that, Oxhead and Horseface is up next on the Iceberg, and we'll hop across the sea once again, going from Japan to China to talk about this one. Legend has it that these two Chads are known in China as the Guardians of the Underworld. As indicated by their names, Oxhead has the head of an ox, whereas Horseface has the face of a horse. Many say that these two beings are the first things that will greet you at the gates of hell if you are destined to go to the underworld. Many say that they are direct escorts. Ancient tales tell us that their role is to capture human souls who have reached the end of their earthly existence and bring them before the courts of hell. Souls are then either rewarded or punished based on the actions performed in their lifetime. Now, I think it's important to say that very few, if any, have claimed seeing the Oxhead and Horseface, but even so, they are known as paranormal entities, so they make the list. Oxhead and Horseface, in fact, segue quite well into our next entry actually, because we're sticking with China, just getting a bit of an upgrade. From the Guardians of the Underworld to the ruler of the Daiyu, which is Chinese hell. That paranormal entity's name is Yanluo Wang. Now, while Wang might be an unfortunate surname for a deity, make no mistake, Yanluo Wang is a scary man. From what I've gathered online, he is essentially the Chinese devil, with men and women who lived good lives not being brought to him, instead being reincarnated, and those who are bad in life being brought to him, where Yanluo Wang will torture them for the rest of eternity. Yanluo Wang also has a bit of a crew with him as well. Obviously, we spoke about Oxhead and Horseface before, but he is additionally accompanied by a judge who holds a book that lists each soul's existence and their allotted time of death. He is also portrayed as much more human-looking than the devil, and yeah, interesting bloke all in all. And there we have it, from demons to angels, from guardians to gods. There isn't much more that I've been able to find in terms of paranormal entities, but if there are in the future, I might just make a part 2. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, would you at all mind hitting the big red subscribe button? That would be fantastic for me. Follow me on my socials, that's Instagram, Twitter and Twitch, links in the description. Join the FoxAkimbo Discord and support me on Patreon, again, links in the description as always. Speaking of Patreon, shout out to my current patrons, Cage101101 and Chris M, who are the best, thank you so much. Also, shout out to the creators of the Iceberg that I've sampled today. There were actually 2, that being one from Uggles and one being from Ray Fugal. So thank you to both of you. And lastly, please let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see me do next, as I'm only 62 videos in and I'm already out of ideas. Thank you for watching.